Only those booth-style seats were separating everyone. David wasn't. 3 years of a business-like marriage had passed when, for the very first time, my wife Willow asked me to attend a party in her place, using overtime as her excuse. But unexpectedly, a friend of mine snapped a photo of her having dinner with her first love, who had just returned to the country. What Willow didn't expect was that I didn't explode in anger. I stayed unusually calm, almost detached, even when she later tried to explain herself. It wasn't until she saw me casually holding a beautiful woman at a gathering that she, with her terrible sense of boundaries, finally panicked for the first time. The party had ended. My wife, who had promised to pick me up afterward, still hadn't shown up. Light rain had begun outside. She wasn't answering any of my calls. The last WeChat message was still mine. The event ends in 10 minutes. Where are you? Guests were leaving one after another. George, is your wife still not here? Want me to drop you off? Someone asked kindly. I forced a smile and waved my hand. No need, she's probably stuck in traffic. You guys go ahead. I looked calm, but inside my anger kept building. Last night, Willow had squeezed time out of her busy schedule to ask me a favor. She had more work to finish and wanted me to attend the event in her place. She promised she'd pick me up afterward. I agreed without hesitation. But another 30 minutes passed and my patience burned out completely. I was about to call a cab when a message popped up from Willow. I'm still working, just take a cab. I didn't reply. Honestly, I should have seen this coming. The cold night breeze calmed me down a little. On the way home, I got a message from David. Idiot, guess where I am right now? I sent a voice note. If you keep messing around, I'm going to punch you. A moment later, he sent a video. It was taken in a fancy, dimly lit, high-end restaurant. In the background, I could clearly see a woman sitting at a nearby table. I recognized her instantly. My wife, Willow. She was smiling in a relaxed way, a smile I hadn't seen in forever. Sitting opposite her was a man, though his face wasn't very clear. David's usual smug tone came through the voice. Didn't expect Makoto to come back. Heard he landed tonight. Better watch out. So, true love had returned. No wonder she had no time for my party. Makoto, her high school sweetheart. They broke up in the 3rd year of university. He had been her everything during her best years. David and I knew because we were in the class next door. I told David to take a couple of clear pictures. Then I forwarded them to Willow. No explanation, no accusation, not even a typing bubble. I didn't care anymore. Our marriage was a deal, nothing more. I switched off my phone, leaned back, and closed my eyes. 3 years earlier, we were both just turning 30. Under pressure from our families, we registered our marriage. The wedding was grand, a perfect match, everyone said. Afterwards, she threw herself into her career, and I managed my company. We lived under one roof, but lived separate lives. Plenty of space, no affection, no fights. Willow believed this arrangement was ideal. But I didn't. It never felt like home. When I reached home, everything was dark. I loosened my tie and poured a glass of ice water. It cooled that rising discomfort in my stomach. After showering, I heard rain slamming against the windows, heavier and heavier. I dried my hair just as my phone buzzed. A message from Willow. The rain is too heavy. I might not be able to come home tonight, just letting you know. It made no sense. She had already been exposed, and now this? I shook my head and didn't respond. Perfect match, destined couple. The host's words echoed in my mind. The Liu family wanted the Wang family's political connections. The Wang family valued the Liu family's business resources. I was Mr. Wang. She was Miss Liu. We were just polished bargaining chips. I thought maybe feelings might grow over time, but 3 years passed. Every time I tried to get closer, she kept the perfect distance. She played the role of a roommate flawlessly. I had once held on to a tiny bit of hope, but after her lie, that last bit crumbled. Dawn was just breaking. I was still buried under my blanket when noises in the hallway awoke me. Sounded like Willow had returned. Ridiculous. It was barely 5 in the morning. If she chose to stay out, she could have at least slept properly instead of coming back so early. She opened the door, walked in, and stood by the bed. I could feel her staring at me, but still half asleep, I ignored her. After a moment, she suddenly tugged at my blanket. I opened my eyes, slapped her hand away, and pulled the blanket back over me. "It's bad to sleep with your head covered," she said stiffly. I muttered crazy under my breath and shot her an irritated glance, and turned over. She had dark circles, messy hair, and was still wearing her clothes from last night, carrying the smell of rain. She clearly hadn't expected my attitude. "I was just trying to fix your blanket," she said, before leaving the room. I slept until late morning. In the living room, she had changed into loungewear and was eating breakfast. I pulled out a chair and sat. "Don't you want to explain last night?" She paused, looked at me, and said, "Makoto just returned. We haven't seen each other in years. We just had dinner. As for lying, I just didn't want to explain too much and make you overthink." "So you two went to a hotel after that?" Willow frowned and set down her spoon. "George, don't say things like that." "I'll head back once the rain stops." I nodded, sipped my water, and calmly said, "All right, noted." My calmness rattled her. She stared at me, trying to read my expression. Anger, disappointment, anything. She found nothing. I focused on spreading jam on my toast. "You don't have anything else to say?" she asked, unsure. I looked up, gave a polite smile, and said, "Say what? Should I wish you a pleasant meal?" She froze for a moment, then silently lowered her head and continued eating. Chapter 3. From that day onward, things quietly shifted. I no longer waited for Willow to come home for dinner. When work piled up, I ate at the company cafeteria. Sometimes I stayed at the gym. By the time I got home, it was 8 or 9. At first, she probably thought I was sulking. She would message around 7, "Are you coming home for dinner?" My replies were slow and short. "Busy, eat first." Or I'd reply hours later, "I've eaten." Eventually, she stopped asking. On the weekend, not wanting to stay home, I called David. The moment I stepped out of my car, 2 girls in JK uniforms walked up to me. They smiled sweetly. "Hello, George." I stared blankly. I'd never seen them in my life. Do we know each other?" They didn't answer. Instead, both hooked their arms around mine, trapping my arms between their chests. "What are you doing?" "Don't worry, handsome. We're here to pick you up. Mr. David sent us." What nonsense had David arranged now? 5 minutes later, I sat across from him. 2 more JK girls were sitting beside him. Puffing a cigarette, David smirked. "So, how's the arrangement? Don't worry, they're all over 18. I snapped. "Are you insane? What kind of hideous nonsense is this?" People around us were looking, some whispering, some judging, and some wearing that familiar male look of envy. The place David picked had a special vibe, but unfortunately, no private booths. David didn't care about my irritation. He exhaled a smoke ring. David grinned like an idiot and said, "Come on, I know you've been in a lousy mood lately, so I brought a couple of girls to lift your spirits. Life is short. Enjoy it while you can. Understand? And besides, Willow already crossed the line. Why should you be scared? Can she start the fire, but you're not allowed to light even a lamp?" The girls beside him were quietly pouring tea and offering him fruit. The 2 sitting next to me leaned in on purpose. "You're the idiot," I snapped. "What's with this flashy nonsense in broad daylight? Couldn't you choose a place with private rooms?" I shot David a look, deciding not to argue further. He'd been like this since he was childhood. I accepted the tea from the girl on my right and said thanks. David leaned back with his legs crossed, acting like some big shot. "Now that's the attitude. I told you back then to stay single with me. You didn't listen. And look at me. I roam through the flowers and not a single petal sticks. So free." I chuckled. grabbed a piece of pumpkin pie with my chopsticks, and said, "Who are you fooling? Everyone knows you're a mama's boy. If your mom found out, she'd break your legs." "She won't. I've got everything handled," David said proudly, pulling the girl beside him closer. "My brother just had his third kid. My mom doesn't care about me anymore. She's busy chasing those little monsters with my old man." He didn't finish because the waiter walked by, leading 2 new customers. I instinctively looked up and froze. The man in front wore a suit, looking gentle and composed, Makoto. Behind him was a woman in a beige trench coat, cold and elegant, Willow. The waiter led them to a booth diagonally across from us. Makoto, being the gentleman he always was, pulled out Willow's chair. She gave a small nod and sat down, her side facing us. David saw them too. His jaw dropped and the peanut he'd been picking up fell back into the bowl. "What the hell?" he muttered. I paused, holding my teacup, then looked away. "What's there to stare at? Eat your food." The 2 JK girls beside me sensed the shift and instantly straightened up. They stopped leaning on me. Even David halted his usual antics. His eyes kept bouncing between our table and theirs, clearly thrilled and nervous, waiting for drama. I kept eating as though nothing happened. Who would have thought of running into them today of all days? Fate really had a sense of humor. "Tss," David whispered, leaning closer. "Want me to go say hi for you?" Without even lifting my head, I said, "Are you stupid? Just eat." At that moment, Willow seemed to notice something. She turned her head toward us. Her gaze first swept over David and the girls beside him, a faint look of contempt flickering in her eyes. Then her eyes landed on me. Our gazes locked. The noise of the restaurant faded instantly. A flicker of surprise crossed her eyes. Then suspicion. Her gaze lingered on my face before drifting to the 2 JK girls sitting close to me. Her brows tightened slightly, her expression icing over in an instant. I didn't look away. I simply held her gaze, even letting a faint, unreadable smile tug at my lips. The eye contact lasted only a few seconds. Willow was the first to look away, turning to say something to Makoto. He followed her line of sight and looked at me. His expression froze momentarily. Then he gave an awkward, polite smile and nodded. I lifted the corner of my mouth in response. "Damn, how can he still smile?" David muttered. I said, "Eat," pulling my eyes away and reaching for a pork rib, as if nothing had happened. But the atmosphere had changed. David was quiet now. The girls next to him also sensed the tension and ate silently. Across the way, I could vaguely hear Willow and Makoto talking. I couldn't catch the words, but Makoto looked calm, gesturing as he spoke, and Willow nodded occasionally. They looked comfortable. I finished my meal fast. "Full?" David asked. "Yeah, let's go." I wiped my mouth, stood up, and walked past Willow's table without stopping or even glancing at her. David lingered a bit, giving them a long look and a small chuckle, before catching up. Outside, the afternoon sun was harsh. David cursed while lighting a cigarette. "Damn, what rotten luck. Ran into those 2 lovebirds while eating. George, can you really put up with this?" I looked at him and suddenly smiled. Why? Should I have flipped their table? "It's just a business marriage, Patio Dangjo." I patted his shoulder. "We're basically partners. As long as it doesn't affect work or the family's reputation, she can do whatever makes her happy." "Want me to help you file for divorce? Didn't your prenup say the cheater gets nothing? I can set you up with a private investigator. I'll help you take her company. I study law." "Better not," I cut him off. "You'll end up getting both of us thrown in jail. And thanks for today, but don't pull the stunt again. And if you do, at least choose a place with more privacy." I tapped his shoulder and headed toward my car. In the rearview mirror, I saw David scratching his head, looking miserable. At home, to my surprise, Willow was already back. She had just taken off her coat. Our eyes met. I changed my shoes, not planning to talk, and walked toward the bedroom. "George," she called, stopping me. I turned. "What?" She looked at me closely, visibly displeased. "Aren't you going to explain anything?" "Explain what?" I leaned against the wall casually. "I just had a simple meal with David. Don't overthink." her words thrown back at her. Sure enough, her face darkened. I couldn't help but find it a little funny. Makoto and I are just normal friends catching up. But what you were doing with David was not normal. Those girls around you were obviously bad news. Her tone sharpened. Oh, so it's fine for you to meet your ex in a fancy restaurant reminiscing about the past, but I can't have dinner with a friend while two waitresses pour tea? I chuckled softly. George, we need to talk. Makoto and I are truly just friends. He just came back and doesn't know much about the local market. I'm just giving him advice. She tried to explain. Mm-hmm. I believe you. So? She was caught off guard again. She must have expected a fight, interrogation, or sarcasm, but not this calm indifference. So, you don't need to mess around with David just to get back at me? She finally said. You're overthinking it. I don't have time for childish games. I've just figured some things out. I didn't look at her conflicted expression anymore. I went into the bedroom. That night, I couldn't sleep well. Half awake, I heard the master bedroom door open and close a few times, soft steps lingering in the hallway. Willow, of course. In the following days, we slipped into a full Cold War mode. Or maybe it was a new stage entirely. Willow moved back to her parents' house. She didn't say anything formally. One day I came home and saw her leaving with a small case. She didn't say a word. I didn't call. That night before sleeping, I received a short message. Busy with work, staying at my parents' house for a few days to make overtime easier. I stared at it, then typed a single word. Okay. For a moment, the screen showed the other party is typing, but nothing else came through. Fine. Saved us both unnecessary conversation. The house grew even colder. I buried myself in work. I wasn't even hanging out with David much. Then one day, David called with loud background noise. Where are you? Enjoying life? I'm throwing a get-together tonight. Are you coming? Working overtime. No way, you? You used to hate overtime. I've got real quality girls tonight. Art school types. Guaranteed fresh. Actually working. Important project. I cut him off. Next time. There was a short silence, then David spoke again, his tone suddenly more serious. All right, focus on your work. If you need anything, just tell me later. After the call ended, I leaned back in my chair. The internal phone rang. My assistant. Mr. Wang, Mr. Makoto Ito is here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's urgent. Should I let him in? Makoto? What was he doing here? I hesitated for a second, then said, let him in. Makoto walked in with his usual polished look, tailored suit, calm smile, every gesture perfectly measured. Mr. Wang, sorry for dropping in unannounced, he said, taking the seat opposite me. Mr. Ito, no need for formalities. What brings you here? I asked, skipping the small talk. He smiled, settling in. It's nothing big. I just met with Willow and happened to be nearby, so I thought I'd stop in and say hello. After all, we're alumni. So that was his angle. Subtle provocation, casually mentioning Willow like that. I raised an eyebrow. You just met with my wife. Sounds like you share quite a close relationship. He leaned forward slightly, hands clasped, still flawless. It's not like that. We're just friends. The office seemed to fall silent. I leaned back, tapping my fingers lightly on the desk, saying nothing. His smile wavered for a split second, though he tried to stay composed. I think there might be a misunderstanding. Willow values old connections, and we've known each other a long time. I gave a faint laugh, picked up the pen on my desk, spinning it lazily to signal he could continue. He sighed. Actually, I'm here today to speak on Willow's behalf. She can be a bit stubborn, not knowing when to soften her stance. In marriage, someone has to take the first step back. I nodded. Mr. Ito, as her ex, are you giving me marriage advice? Seeing my indifferent tone, Makoto stood up, his earlier enthusiasm fading. Mr. Wang, please don't misunderstand. As mutual friends, I simply don't want to see you two arguing over trivial matters. Don't worry about it. I pressed the internal phone. See him out. The dismissal was final. Makoto's smile completely disappeared. I walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window. From there, I saw him leave the building, stop at the roadside to make a call, then get into a taxi. At 8 that evening, I drove home. The garage was empty, Willow's parking space still vacant. I loosened my tie, planning to shower and grab something to eat. But, surprisingly, Willow was home, sitting on the living room sofa as if waiting for me. With a serious expression, she said, "George, we need to talk." I sat in the single chair opposite her. Talk about what? "Did Makoto come to see you today?" she asked, not questioning, more confirming. Clearly, Makoto had contacted her right after leaving my office. "Yeah, your ex was very enthusiastic, even brought fruit." She frowned. "What did you two talk about?" "Not much," I said casually. "He was being impatient, asking when I'm planning to divorce you." Willow's face went completely pale. She shot to her feet. "How could he say something like that, George? There's a limit to the lies you tell." "Believe it or not," I replied, stretching my legs out lazily. "He even said, as your old friend, that I should be generous and let you find your second spring." Willow's chest rose and fell sharply, anger shaking her voice. "George, Makoto would never say something like that. How could he—" "How could he what?" I cut her off. "He even dared to provoke me, saying the one who isn't loved is the real third wheel. He said the night he returned, you left me to go see him, and that was proof enough. With one call, he said you'd go—" Silence. Only her heavy, furious breathing filled the room. You're lying," she finally whispered, voice shaking. "George, are you insane? Makoto would never. This is slander." "Slander?" I scoffed. "Believe whatever you want. I said what I said. If you doubt it, call your old friend right now and ask him if he's in a hurry to play the hero." Willow stared at me like she didn't recognize me, her eyes burning with humiliation and anger. She searched my face for even a hint of dishonesty, but all she found was cold mockery. She grabbed her handbag. "You're impossible." Throwing the words at me, she marched to the door. Her heels struck the floor sharply. Bang. The door slammed. Expressionless, I walked to the bar counter and poured myself a glass of whiskey. Ice clinked softly in the glass. Willow didn't come back that night. We were stuck in a strange stalemate. When a relative asked in the family WeChat group, I said she had a major project and was staying at her parents' to make overtime easier. She didn't correct me, kept her silence. David invited me out several times. I declined, blaming work. He must have sensed something because he sighed over the phone. "George, why torture yourself? Want me to come over with drinks?" "It's nothing. Just busy," I said lightly. "We'll hang out when things calm down." After the call, I looked outside. The sky was darkening, heavy with rain. A week later, I represented the company at an important industry summit. Couples usually attend together, but I went alone. Bad luck struck again. Willow and Makoto were seated at the same table. Willow wore a silver gown. Makoto stood beside her, smiling like everything belonged to him. The table atmosphere instantly turned awkward. Willow saw me and turned pale, instinctively wanting to switch seats. But Makoto, playing the gentleman, pulled a chair for her. "Willow, sit here. The view's better." I scoffed and refused to look at them. Mid-meal, the waiter served hot soup. When a bowl of mushroom chicken soup was placed in front of Willow, she suddenly covered her mouth and gagged. It was subtle, but obvious enough that the whole table froze. Makoto immediately handed her a glass of water, patting her back gently. "Are you all right? Maybe you've been overworking." The tone, the gesture, like a man auditioning for husband. One clueless boss chuckled. "Ms. Liu, is there some good news? Congratulations, Mr. Wang." Congratulations, my ass. I set down my chopsticks, wiped my mouth, and looked directly at Willow, her face white as paper. "Well," I said in a level tone, loud enough for everyone, "we should figure out whether it's just an upset stomach or if congratulations are actually in order." I paused, then glanced at Makoto's stiff face. After all, maybe it's just a stomach issue. The whole table felt dead silent. The boss who had congratulated us turned red and white, wishing he could disappear. I stood up, tugged at my tie, and gave a polite nod. "Apologies, everyone. Please enjoy your meal. I'm not feeling well, so I'll excuse myself." Without looking back, I walked out of the hall. The moment I sat in my car, my phone buzzed nonstop. Willow calling. I muted it and started the engine. I hadn't driven far when I saw her at the intersection, standing in the cold night breeze in her thin gown. As soon as she spotted my car, she rushed forward, blocking the road. I hit the brakes. She slammed her hands on the window, completely losing her composure. "George, get out of the car. We need to clear this up." I rolled down the window, looking at her calmly. "Clear what?" "What was that remark you made in front of everyone?" she demanded. I stared at her, unmoved, with no intention of opening the door. "Did I say something wrong? Isn't it just an upset stomach? You can't actually be pregnant, right?" "I've been almost a year post-vasectomy," I said casually. Clink. Willow's phone slipped from her hand and hit the ground with a sharp, ringing sound. She stared at me stunned, her lips trembling, unable to utter a word. Is that true? When did you—" Her voice shook. The rest of the sentence barely made it out. "Vasectomy? Yeah, it's true." No, that's not possible. You couldn't have gotten a vasectomy." Her eyes went blank as she muttered to herself. Then she suddenly snapped her head up, panic written across her face. "That's not a funny joke at all." My smile faded, my expression turning cold. "I'm not joking. So, tell me, what are you planning to do about the bastard child in your stomach?" "Bastard child?" she echoed, her voice hoarse, full of disbelief and absurdity. "George, do you even hear yourself?" "I said the child in your belly is a bastard." I kept my voice level, even added a hint of cruel amusement as I stressed every word. "You're lying. I'm not pregnant." Willow finally managed to speak again after the shock settled. "And how could I be? As my husband, you secretly went and got a vasectomy without even telling me?" I looked at her, feeling only boredom. This whole game of hurting each other, it didn't satisfy me like I expected. "If you're not pregnant, then just go to the hospital and get checked." My voice was icy as I gripped the steering wheel. "Move. I'm leaving." Willow didn't stop me. She only stood there, staring blankly at my car. I rolled up the window, shutting everything, and her unsettling gaze as well. Then I stepped on the gas and drove away. My phone rang. It was David again. I put down the file and answered. "Damn, you're something else, George. Guess who I just saw outside the gynecology and obstetrics clinic?" "Willow." My hand froze mid-air with the wine glass. What was she doing there? No idea. She looked pale, like a ghost, totally lost. She walked out and practically ran into the door. David sounded giddy, like a kid in a fruit market. "Do you think she might be pregnant? With your kid?" "None of my business." What if it is yours? You're a jerk, but I'll give you this, you're still pretty fertile. Go to hell. I hung up. The irritation boiling inside me wouldn't settle. The OBGYN clinic. The last time we had sex was more than 2 months ago. Could it be? Did she actually cheat on me? The next few days passed quietly. Willow didn't come home or call. Work kept me busy, but an unshakable frustration hung over me. That afternoon, my mother-in-law called. "George, come for dinner tonight. Your dad caught a huge fish and insists on cooking it," she said, amused. I rubbed my temples. "Mom, I might not be able to tonight. I've got something urgent." "What's more important than coming home for dinner?" she snapped. "How long has it been since you visited? And Willow's been back for who knows how long. You still haven't brought her home." I had no choice but to agree in the end. When I arrived at the Liu family villa, parked, and walked inside, I immediately sensed something was wrong. Not only were my in-laws there, my parents were too. All 4 elders sitting together, not angry, but definitely not relaxed. Willow sat on a single sofa off to the side, eyes downcast, clutching a glass of water so tightly her knuckles had gone white. She didn't look at me. My heart sank. This wasn't a family dinner. This was a tribunal. I greeted everyone, trying to sound normal. "George is here. Sit down. We've been waiting for you," my mother-in-law said with a strained smile. My parents shared glances, their expressions complicated. Dinner was lavish. The giant fish my father-in-law was proud of steamed in the center of the table. He boasted endlessly about catching the 200-pound monster. My mother-in-law tried to fill the silence with small talk about the weather and the news. Finally, after I set down my chopsticks and accepted the tea she handed me, my mother couldn't hold back any more. She placed her cup down hard. The sound cracked the forced calm. "George," she said, voice heavy with emotion, "we called you here because we need to ask, what exactly is happening between you and Willow?" There it was. I said nothing, just sipped my tea, waiting. My mother-in-law, "I said I didn't have a vasectomy." I looked directly into her eyes. "I made it up." Bang! My mother slammed her palm on the table. "You child! Do you think you can just say whatever you want? Do you even know?" "Know what?" I cut her off, frustration simmering beneath my voice. My eyes turned to Willow. "Why don't you ask her why she was guilty enough to rush to the OBGYN? Isn't the reason obvious? Her ex comes back, and she immediately goes to see him, then lies to me saying she's working late. She stays out with him till midnight and then uses the rain as an excuse not to come home. She hangs out with my friends on weekends and drags her ex along just to disgust me. And then he shows up at my company lecturing me on how to be a husband just because they're supposedly old friends." "No," Willow's voice suddenly cracked through the room. Her body shook violently, tears streaming uncontrollably. "I went to the hospital because I thought you really had a vasectomy." Everyone froze. "I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not pregnant, but I was terrified. Terrified that if I somehow got pregnant and you had a vasectomy, whose child would it be? I had to check." She dug into her bag with trembling hands, pulled out a folded paper, and slammed it on the table. "This is the report. I'm not pregnant." Her voice broke with pain and anger. "I even asked the doctor if a wife could still get naturally pregnant after her husband had a vasectomy. She said reversal was risky, that you might lose the ability to have children forever." She sobbed so hard she could barely breathe, makeup smudged all over her face. Both sets of parents were stunned, staring between us as Willow looked ready to collapse. My mother-in-law rushed to hold her. Willow raised her tear-filled eyes and glared at me. "George, All I could think was, what if you really couldn't have kids anymore? What would we do? What if we want children one day? What then? I never once thought about divorcing you over this, but you used such a vicious lie to hurt me, just to get back at me. My mother tried to speak, but ended up sighing. I sat silently, the irritation inside me strangely settling. Yes, I was wrong to lie, I said, voice eerily calm. But can you honestly tell me why I lied? The day Makoto came back, you told me you were working late. But what happened? You had dinner with him till midnight and used the rain as an excuse not to come home. You go out with my friends on weekends and drag your ex along just to disgust me? And then he shows up at my company acting like he knows how I should treat you. At that industry summit banquet, you two were so close that anyone who didn't know better would have assumed you and Makoto were the married couple. With each sentence I threw at her, Willow's face grew a shade paler. Willow, even clay figures crack when pushed too far. Do you really think I don't have a temper? The restaurant fell into a suffocating silence. Both sets of parents exchanged looks, their anger and accusations gradually fading, replaced by embarrassment and a dawning understanding. They finally realized this wasn't just about the vasectomy lie. It was the explosion of deeper issues that have been accumulating for a long time. My mother-in-law kept her arm around Willow's shoulders, her eyes filled with reproach towards me, but mostly helplessness. My father-in-law sighed, picked up a cigarette, then slammed it back down. My father frowned deeply while my mother struggled to speak but held back. Willow gently pulled away from her mother-in-law's embrace, wiping her tear-streaked cheeks. Her eyes were swollen, red. Yes, I admit I mishandled things with Makoto. I ignored your feelings. Her voice was hoarse but firm. I lied about working late, and I made you uncomfortable by meeting him so often. That was my fault. But I never, not once, thought about betraying our marriage. And I never thought about leaving. I thought we needed more time to adjust. She inhaled slowly, trying to study her emotions. I tried getting close, but you kept pushing me away with your independence and boundaries. And then Makoto comes back, and suddenly all your time and boundaries are for him? Don't talk about my lie. In the end, it's you and Makoto who are unclear. The fact that I didn't go up and beat him to a pulp is already me giving you face. Willow's lips parted, but nothing came out. She just stared at me like I was a stranger. So, in your mind, Makoto and I must have had something going on? I didn't answer. I let the implication hang. Both our families looked grim, but stayed silent. This was for us to handle. George, you're such a bastard. She didn't look at me again. Instead, she bowed deeply to the elders. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. I'm ashamed you had to witness this. I can't stay for dinner. Before anyone could respond, she turned and walked away. Her heels clicked sharply against the floor until the sound faded near the stairs. My mother-in-law instinctively tried to chase after her, but my father-in-law held her back with a shake of his head. George, my dad sighed, looking drained, struggling to find the right words. You... sigh. I stood up, tugged at my tie. I'm leaving. No one stopped me. Outside, the night air hit my face, cooling the heat in my head. My phone buzzed. It was David. How's it going? He asked. My parents are here too. So, did you two patch it up? I don't know. It's complicated. Damn, want to grab a drink? He offered cautiously. I'm not going. I'm heading home. I hung up, but didn't start the car. Willow's face from earlier flashed through my mind, forming a heavy lump in my chest. But that feeling quickly turned into something sharper. Annoyance. How is it that she clings to her ex, yet I'm the one who ends up looking like the villain? The next few days went by normally. Work, home, repeat. Willow didn't return, nor did she contact me. Everything felt too quiet. Friday afternoon, as I reviewed some documents, the intercom buzzed again. My assistant sounded tense. Mr. Wang? Mr. Makoto is here again. He says it's important. He insists on seeing you. I frowned. This guy just wouldn't quit. Let him in. He came in dressed casually this time, but looking far worse than before. He marched straight to my desk, hands braced on top, leaning forward, eyes burning with fury. George, what did you say to Willow? I leaned back, spinning my pen lazily. Mr. Ito, what kind of attitude is that? He took a deep breath, trying to control himself. She blocked all my contact. I even went to her office, but she avoided me. We've been friends for so many years, and now because of your words, she's doing this. I laughed. Your words? All I did was repeat what you told me, that I should divorce her quickly and make way for you. Or did you not say that? Makoto's expression twisted. You're slandering me. When did I ever? Oh, maybe I remembered wrong. I shrugged. But does it even matter? She doesn't want to see you. Isn't that obvious? And now you're here causing a scene in my office? His chest heaved with anger. George, don't be proud. Willow was just deceived by you for a moment. She'll see the truth soon. Really? I stood up, meeting his glare. You're in your 30s and still this shameless. Willow and I are married. How dare you say that in front of me? His face alternated between pale and flushed. I walked around the desk, stopped in front of him, and patted his shoulder, like I genuinely cared. Let me give you some advice, Mr. Ito. Stop chasing another man's wife. It's pathetic. And besides, I leaned in close. How do you know she blocked you because of me, and not because she finally realized how disgusting you are? Makoto shoved me hard, murder in his eyes. Escort Mr. Ito out, I said into the intercom. Security took him away. When I got home that night, the hallway light was on. I froze. Willow was sitting on the sofa in loungewear, hair still damp from a shower. She didn't look at me. She stared at the TV, though it wasn't even on. I changed my shoes and went to pour water. I moved back in, she said, suddenly, voice flat. She finally turned to look at me, her eyes still swollen but her face calm. Did Makoto come see you today? Yeah. What did he say? Nothing new. I told him to step aside and let him take my place, said I exposed him and caused him to be blocked. I told him he shouldn't chase someone else's wife. It's immoral. And then he said something disgusting. Like, a goal scored by the goalkeeper makes the game more exciting. A grown man talking like that. Shameless. Wua's expression visibly darkened. Her fingers tightened on her loungewear. Did he really say that? She asked quietly. Doesn't matter, I countered and sat at the far end of the couch. You blocked him, right? She hesitated, then softly replied, I told him that from now on it's strictly work, no private meetings, and only if there's work. It sounded like an explanation, a concession, but the bitterness lingering in my chest didn't disappear. Trust is like a piece of paper. Once crumpled, it never goes back to how it was. Do whatever you want, I muttered, turning on the TV. Business news filled the room, making the silence even emptier. Life seemed to return to its previous routine, yet something had irrevocably